All right, boys, welcome back for episode 10 of the Fishbowl Hockey Podcast. I'm your host, Larry Fisher, and I'm joined by my usual wingmen, Dan Nadeau and Matty Fiacco. In case you missed us or we're missing our predictions for this NHL season, you're in luck because today's show is a belated season preview, and we will still be sharing our predictions for the Stanley Cup following the first 10 games, but better late than never, right? And we would have convened at the start of this month prior to opening night, but Maddie was away at Chavez Ravine, which we all wish we were back there tonight. Hey, Maddie?
Yeah, I
May-
wish I was back there tonight.
Maybe tell everyone about being at Dodger Stadium and the game you got to see. Start us off there.
So yeah, I didn't realize Shohei was pitching on the mound when I walked in, and I'm like, Dad, he's pitching. I'm like, this game's gonna be epic. And then I'm like, um, he hits one home run, and then two, and then three. And I'm like, I looked at my dad, I'm like, wow, is this kid even human?
And struck out 10, and unfortunately
Yeah,
he hit two more on the Jays last night, right? So yeah, you're maybe sick of seeing Shohei hit homers at this point.
yeah. I
Hopefully no
mean,
more tonight.
yeah, his base percent was pretty high last night.
Yeah, no doubt, eh? Two doubles, two homers, and what, four walks, I think, intentional
Five.
walks. Yeah,
Yeah.
five. Yeah, crazy. Yeah, that's wild. But that had to be the highlight of your trip. You were down there on family vacation in Palm Springs. I know your parents are still there, but it doesn't get much better than that for a World Series game and a live sporting experience. Dan, did you stay up and burn the midnight oil in Alberta last night to see the end of the
No,
Jays game?
I had a men's league game and then had great success there. We won 9-3 and then I came home. I had the game on and like laying in bed watching it, but I won't lie, like I'm not a Jays fan. I'm a Red Sox fan. Um but it basically goes Red Sox, make sure the Yankees lose, and then if the Jays are still in, I'll cheer for them. And so I'm hoping that they can pull it out for Canada's sake. It'd be neat to have a championship come north of the border finally in one of the major sports. We can't seem to be getting it done in oil country and the one we all really want it to happen in. So hopefully the Jays can pull it out here.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, last night, record tying 18 inning game there, and obviously gave up a homer in the bottom of the 18th, a walk off. So the Dodgers are up 2-1 in the World Series going into tonight. I know Vladdy hit a homer early. I don't know where they're at right now, but I think they're in the sixth inning and the Jays are still up. So let's hope they can pull it off to ensure they get back to Toronto at least for game six on Friday. That'd make for another fun weekend. But enough about baseball. We're here to talk about hockey. And obviously, the NHL has a full slate for tonight's Frozen Frenzy. All 32 teams in action, including the almighty Utah Mammoth in Edmonton, keeping tabs on that as well as the Jays with Ohtani back on the mound there. Like I said, for the first time since Maddie saw him finish off the Brewers. But let's just enjoy a great sports night and obviously hopefully the parlays come through as well. And for our fellow Oilers faithful, we will do a deeper dive on their first 10 games of 500 hockey, a 4-4-2 record going into tonight hosting Utah. But let's start with the big picture in the league at large because it is still very early, and I know we shouldn't draw too many conclusions for another month or at least another 10 games. We always say not until American Thanksgiving, which is November 27th. We're recording on October 28th, so give it a month, but I'm sure we can all agree it's been an interesting start to the season. No shortage of storylines emerging, so lots for us to talk about. And like I said, that includes the Oilers' opponent tonight, the Utah Mammoth, who entered today topping the Western Conference and Central Division standings at 8-2 through their first 10 games. Maybe starting there, Dan, on a scale of
Yeah.
surprising to shocking, how impressed are you with Utah's start, and are you buying into the Mammoth's momentum?
You know what? Even when they were in Arizona, you could see them start to kind of get the pieces and like put things in place, but they never really had that like ownership group that was gonna give the GM kind of carte blanche to go spend some money, and go get free agents and do the things that Ryan Smith is doing in Utah. And so when you infuse sort of from the top down that energy and that passion for like what you're doing, by opening your checkbook early as an owner. It kind of gets everybody in the room motivated. So do I think it's sustainable? I hope so for the sake of hockey in Utah. I think they're also too young and dumb to know they're not supposed to be doing this well quite yet. Um, and a hot start can potentially keep them in that playoff conversation. Maybe they're going to be a third in the Central by the time it's all said and done. But having this hot start, they're off to a hot one tonight against our Oilers. We can talk more about that later. And yeah, you know what? I don't think I'm like shocked or surprised. I think maybe they're about a year ahead of where I thought they'd be right now, maybe two because of the pieces they had there. But no, it doesn't shock or surprise me at all that this is happening with the Mammoth because the pieces were there in Arizona. They just didn't have an owner willing to invest to put the sort of the next level of pieces around those ones.
And obviously, we've seen that impact firsthand with Daryl Cates at Edmonton and his ability to spend to the cap as soon as he took over and really get that franchise, trending to where they are now. And obviously, Ryan Smith, not to be confused with the former Oilers
No,
Smitty, different Ryan Smith. This one might have a little bit more money than Smitty even, but he's a
just a
great.
smidge.
Yeah, he's a great guy and a great owner, and really, he's a young guy, so he's brought a lot of energy to the NHL. And like I said, I love what he's doing there, and I think that is contagious for the players to get pumped up and want to give him a winning product to cheer for. And I know, Maddie, you're loving how Dylan Gunther's lighting it up for your new fantasy team. He had 11 points in 10 games going into tonight. The Edmonton boy will be excited for his homecoming game tonight. Previously starred for the Edmonton Oil Kings in the Western Hockey League. But Maddie, just what do you want to weigh in on with Utah's early success? Do you think they're for real, or do you think they're destined to drop off and fall behind the likes of Colorado, Dallas, Winnipeg, those perennial contenders in the Central Division? Where do you see Utah winding up?
Mm, they say the always rises to the top. Um, I they're showing signs of becoming a really good team. Their goaltending being good. TJ Ginla's on his way, almost up, ready to go. Um, yeah. Hopefully we can. I hopefully we can keep Dylan Gunther quiet. I would like the fantasy points, but not against my Oilers.
Absolutely. Yeah, keep him quiet for tonight, and then he can go on a heater again.
Yeah.
I didn't have Utah as a playoff team in my predictions. I did put out season predictions as a blog. I know we didn't have a chance to get to the podcast before the season started, so I just fired out a blog. I had Minnesota as the riser in the Central, with Utah still finishing sixth there in the division, 12th in the conference, 22nd overall. But I think, like Dan said, that this early success could potentially carry forward and keep them in the conversation. So I think I might need a mulligan there on the Mammoth. I had St. Louis getting the second wild card, but the Blues are right now bringing up the rear in the Central. I think they're getting spanked by the Red Wings tonight as well. So I'm gradually getting on this Utah bandwagon just by seeing what's happening in the rest of the division. And as Dan said, the vibes are high with Utah, starting with the owner, Ryan Smith. And I think I might regret changing my mind on the Mammoth, because is Karel Vejmelka and Vitek Vanacek the goaltending tandem that can lead them to the playoffs? And, can they actually sustain this strong start? But right now, as of today, I do think they have the potential to sneak in as a wild card. I think Dallas, Colorado, even Winnipeg, I think are still right there at the top. What do you think, Dan, as far as the teams to beat in that division? I know you mentioned you think Utah could get in, but are you still high on Colorado, Dallas, perhaps even Winnipeg? I know maybe the Jets rise to the occasion this year with more veteran leadership from Jonathan Taves being that good storyline back in Winnipeg.
I think as an Oiler fan, you want Utah, Colorado, Dallas, and Winnipeg to be the teams and bully everybody because that means Jordan Binnington might be available at the deadline for the Oilers to shore up the one part that they kind of need to maybe finally get over that hump, in the playoffs, because goaltending is obviously an issue for the Oilers. But yeah, I mean, you can't really. You have a team with McKinnon and Makar. How do you bet against that? It's right, and they've got goaltending. And Winnipeg, Connor Hellebuck has proven time and time again that he is he's probably the best regular season goalie in the NHL. Like it's not even close. at this juncture. There's guys that have been as good or better than him in the past, but for the last couple of years, he's been the guy in the regular season that seems impossible to beat. Right now, can he translate that to the playoffs? Depends who he plays, right? But those are still your teams. But again, I mean, Utah's 8-2. They're 2 points up on Colorado, and Utah's winning again tonight, and they just can't seem to turn off winning. And winning's contagious. Like losing is just as contagious, don't get me wrong. It's actually more contagious because it's the easiest thing you'll do in life. Winning's contagious. And they're right now it's running through that team. And if they can stay hot for a month, they're probably in the dance.
Yeah, it's I mean they're off to such a good start. It's hard to bet against them right now, and especially going night to night, whether you're doing money line bets or points for Keller and Schmaltz. I mean, and Gunther. I mean, they got a Logan
What a
Cooley the
roster.
other night. Yeah, when you start looking at that roster, you can see the potential, and then you're like, how do you slow these guys down, right? And what about other contenders worth discussing from the Central, Maddie? Maybe Minnesota and their $17 million man, Kirill Kaprizov. Obviously, that was a shockingly big contract, 17.5 technically. And obviously, we know Connor McDavid stayed at 12.5 million to give Edmonton a chance to win. But do you think Minnesota's putting the pieces together to obviously to get back into the playoffs and maybe challenge the Colorados and the Dallases of that division? We all know the impact that Mikko Rantanen had in Dallas and their playoff run last year. But Maddie, what do you make of Minnesota or some of these other teams in the Central?
Um, yeah, Minnesota has like Boldy, like I can't believe Kaprizov turned down the $138 million to sign a huger deal. That sent shockwaves through the NHL. Um, but yeah, Minnesota has a good defense, a good goalie. I think they just need some more scoring.
Yeah, potentially. Hey, I know that they're hoping guys like Marco Rossi and maybe new guys like that, Daniel Yurov or Liam Ogren, some of their young guys step up. But certainly Z Byam or Buyam, he's one of the potential Calder candidates this year on defense. Like you said, they already had Brock Faber and some other good promising defensemen. The upstart Chicago Blackhawks, and last I looked, they were beating up on the Senators tonight. But you got Connor Bedard, Frank Nazar, Spencer Knight in goal, really leading that youth movement. And it seems like they've got some vibes going under new coach Jeff Blashill as well. I don't know, Dan, do you want to weigh in on Chicago or obviously, where does that leave Nashville and St. Louis? Are they the also Rans in that division or is it still wide open that any of those four teams, Minnesota, Chicago, Nashville, St. Louis, could play their way back into the playoff conversation with the now big four of Dallas, Colorado, Winnipeg, and Utah?
I'm just not loving Chicago's sort of depth in net and depth on D to really feel that they're going to be able to push. Obviously, they can outscore some problems with like Bedard and Donato seems to just keep having career after career by one or two goals, getting one or two more every year than he normally does. And Nazar's obviously coming in and Slaggert, but they're just I just don't love like the defensive depth there. I think, outside of Grizzlick and a couple guys, like it drops off significantly after that. I know everyone that doesn't like the Oilers are going to laugh at an Oiler fan saying that about another team's back end. And then is Spencer Knight or Soderblom actually ready to carry the load, right? Again, goaltending being an issue in a few teams that we like to talk about here. The only difference is the one team, the Oilers, have the nuclear factor in McDavid and Draisaitl to overcome usually some of the goaltending errors that happen with us, where I just don't see the Blackhawks having that same sort of effect, especially in the Central. That's such a heavy, defensively sound division where the Pacific is definitely a lot more wide open, and that's where the Oilers can catch teams. So I
I
just, yeah,
think
I don't. Chicago's close, but I just don't see them sneaking in this year.
And I think, I mean, it's good to see them taking some positive steps forward and maybe not being in the McKenna conversation at this point in the season, but maybe they end up back there at the end. Obviously, there's
I
the
don't think they drop that far, but they'll probably knock on that wild card door, but I don't think they can bust it down this year.
Yeah, and I think you're safe. I don't think anybody will look at that Chicago defensive depth chart next to the Oilers and think that they're better. It's a very young group in Chicago. I mean, they're on the rise there. Levshunov, Rins, Sam
Yeah.
Rinzel, like they got some guys that are going to be players in this league, but they're very
Har-
inexperienced on the back end right now. And
Hardest position outside of goaltender, it's the hardest position to play in the NHL, and these guys just need a little more time and some seasoning.
So I think they said there'll be some peaks and valleys in that Chicago season. I think they'll have a tough time keeping it consistent and staying above 500. Maddie, what about Nashville, St. Louis, kind of to close out the Central Division? Obviously, St. Louis had the big run after the Four Nations last year and got back into the playoffs, but they're off to a uneven, sluggish start. They're kind of at the bottom of that division. And Nashville, we thought maybe this would be the year where, Steven Stamkos has a year under his belt there, Marsh or so. Maybe they start trending up, but they seem like they're kind of just, lingering behind the pack, especially with Utah on the rise and maybe even Minnesota challenging the big three in Colorado, Dallas, and Winnipeg. Do you have any thoughts on Nashville or St. Louis, or do you think those are teams that are going to be, trending into that lottery territory?
Yeah, and Nashville's got Michael McCarron out the middle. He's a big centerman, but like they do have some fast players, but I think like they're gonna be sellers trying to get a lottery pick.
Yeah, it would be interesting. I think Ryan O'Reilly has 2 seasons left at 4.5. So to get two playoff runs with a guy like Ryan O'Reilly, I think there'll be a lot of interest, especially with the cap going up significantly next year. I think you're right, Maddie. I think if it doesn't click soon, I think Nashville could be one of the first teams to start selling and really embrace their rebuild. Get guys like Joakim Kemmel and Matthew Wood in the lineup and really start to, obviously they sent Brady Martin back to junior, but they're starting to get some pieces. They had a top five pick this year. They obviously don't want to be there, but if that's the way it's looking, you may as well really embrace that and send some of these vets on to contenders. Staying in the West and shifting to the division that we all tend to follow the closest. Dan, maybe starting with you again, how do you see the Pacific stacking up or shaking down? Obviously, Vegas is on top early with Mitch Marner fitting right in alongside Jack Eichel. Pavel Dorofeyev's been on a heater to start the season. So their offense is firing, but Mark Stone is already hurt again. Alex Pietrangelo, he is a huge loss and he's not really expected back this season. And now Aiden Hill just went down to injury. So, I mean, they're riding Akira Schmid. He's getting them some wins, but he's not a proven NHL goalie by any means. And Carter Hart's been out of the game for, a couple seasons now or a season and a half, and he's still over a month away from debuting there. So do you think goaltending's the biggest concern for the Golden Knights, or are they deep enough to kind of overcome this Aiden Hill absence? And is that the team that scares you now more than ever with the addition of Marner?
I mean, not really. Um, I don't know what's Marner actually done in the playoffs. And again, like, yeah, okay, he's in Toronto and he's playing with another guy that gets questionable playoff performances in Matthews, and maybe one or the other wasn't feeding off the other, and we'll see one or both kind of come alive in the playoffs this year, because Vegas is going to get into the playoffs and they're a team that the Oilers are going to have to go through at some point to win, unless for some reason the Oilers do fall into that wild card and come through the Central and somebody knocks Vegas out. But like they don't scare me. They're good. They're deep. They're fast. Um, Goaltending is gonna be okay. Like Carter Hart's gonna be fine. It's not like he hasn't played hockey. He's now practicing with the team. He's gonna get the pace. Like, he didn't forget how to stop a puck. Um, Maybe hopefully he did, at least for a few games against the Oilers, but I don't think so. I saw him train in the summer here in Alberta. He looked good. Looked good. He had NHL guys out ripping pucks at him, and he's facing NHL level shots in the summer. And yeah, he looked good. Vegas is going to be good again. They're going to be a tough out. They're going to be a perennial tough out because guys love playing there. Guys love going there. They're going to attract free agents. They're creating a Florida light, kind of, if you will, from a culture perspective, even though they're getting hammered on right now for the signing they just made. From a culture perspective, but we've been to Vegas. Like, it's not a bad place to live, and it's not a bad place to have a lot of money in. And be, right? And so they're always going to be good. How good remains to be seen, but no, they don't scare me just because they got Marner. They scare me because they're Vegas and they're good and they're always good.
Yeah, and Maddie, I'm sure it's not a huge surprise for you to see Vegas leading the Pacific to date, but do you think they are that juggernaut now with Marner, or is it a fear not come playoffs for Edmonton if that matchup materializes again? Are you pretty confident the Oilers could take out the new look Golden Knights?
Margaret's is about as soft as peanut butter in a closet cupboard. Yeah. He hasn't shown anything like a playoff performance. So yeah, if Oilers get rolling and we see them in the second round, yeah, we could take them out again.
And what about a couple other teams? Maybe starting with you, Maddie. Seattle and Anaheim are off to above 500 starts. Maybe the next biggest surprises in the West after Utah. I did have Anaheim as my Pacific riser, predicting the Ducks would make the playoffs. Actually, as the third seed in the division behind Vegas and Edmonton. So I'm not shocked that Joel Quenneville's getting the best out of that roster. I think they perhaps won in a shootout tonight in Florida again. So that if so, that puts them at like 5-3-1. Seattle maybe a little more surprising to me. They were 5-2-2 going into the full slate tonight, but another team that seems to be getting the new coach bump from Lane Lambert. What do you make of them, Maddie? And are those teams pretenders, or should we start to consider them potential contenders in Seattle and Anaheim?
Yeah, you got those Dahl in the back in the crease trying to keep the puck out. He's an up and coming goalie. You got Mason, you got Mason McTavish in Anaheim, stayed in Anaheim. You got Vetrano there, a little veteran leadership. And then, yeah, a couple pieces in Seattle if injuries have, especially on the back end, have really hurt them. Well, will probably hurt them.
Could for sure, yeah. And Dan, what about you? Are you buying stock in Seattle or Anaheim, or do you think the Kraken are still lacking and the Ducks will struggle to stay afloat as the season progresses?
See what you did there, little. You know what? I looked at Seattle's roster here quickly too, because I was like, man, how are they doing so well? And then it's like you go down the thing and it's like Benier's, he's in year what, 3.
Mhm.
He's starting to figure the game out. Gabriele, he's been in the league for a long time, captain, heck of a leader. Capo Caco, restart, gets out of New York. Probably didn't love New York. Probably a little bit of a like culture shock for him going from like Finland to New York, right?
Mhm.
So, you know, he's probably going to come alive. Mason Marchment, like dude's a stud. Like he's a guy that everybody needs on their team. 6'5", hits, like does everything right. Jared McCann wins a cup, right? Jaden Schwartz won a cup. Chandler Stevenson won a cup. Shane Wright into year sort of 2.5, 3 in the league, starting to figure out the league, heady hockey player. Then you look at the back end. Vince Dunn won a cup. Adam Larson. How much would the Oilers love to have him right now? I mean, right? Brandon Montour won a cup. Alexiak deep runs all the time with Dallas and places like that. And then you go into the back end and like Decord's figuring it out. He's a good goalie. And then they've got Grubauer and Matt Murray there. And Murray's won 2 cups. I mean, you know what? It's not like, it's not super like sexy by any means where you're like superstar, 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 superstar. But there's just some solid NHL hockey players there that know how to lead a room and do it the right way and know how to manufacture wins that maybe you're not supposed to get.
Yeah, I think like you said, I think they don't have that McDavid Draisaitl
No.
nuclear option to send out. I mean, Beniers and Wright aren't that yet, and obviously Anaheim they got so much youth there too. But like I think you guys made good points. Anaheim adding guys like Chris Kreider and Jacob Trouba the last little bit. They had some playoff success with the Rangers, but some veteran leadership to help mentor that young group. Obviously, you got Beckett Seneca is looking good as a
Oh,
rookie, and
man.
you got Roger McQueen coming. They're going to be a big, strong team, kind of like the Getzlaf Perry days in Anaheim. So they might be a little ahead of their time right now. But you guys mentioned the goaltending too with Joey Daccord in Seattle and and obviously Lucas Dostal and Anaheim. I think those are two teams that are trending up in this division. And you know, can the other teams that have been up at the top, the LAs and stuff, can they hold them off? Or Dan, what were you going to weigh in there with
How
obviously the youth
smart,
movement?
how smart does Anaheim's scouting system look right now for taking Seneke third overall?
Yeah,
Especially if he just keeps doing what he's doing right now. And you know, I got to know him a little bit because I coached some 06 hockey in Ontario and his family and his dad. Unreal kid. I'm so happy that he's getting to do this. And like the look of shock on his face, even when he went third, and he's making them look like the smartest scouting staff at the draft right now with how he's playing.
yeah, especially being in the
Oh,
league and scoring like he is, and again, just that size and skill. You can see he's kind of just scratching the surface of
oh
what he
man.
can become. And I guess that's when you're drafting, right? You're always projecting what are they going to be in 2, 3, 5 years versus how much are they lighting up junior. And it looked like a reach at the time, but now you see what he's looking like a man among men out there already as a teenager. So he's
Unbelievable.
definitely going to be a big part of that future. What about the other Canadian teams there, Maddie? Obviously, the Vancouver Canucks and Calgary Flames. This is kind of your chance to bash the Flames and kick them while they're down. It's too bad our buddy Marshall isn't here to bear the brunt of Calgary's bad start, but I'm sure he'd love to see McKenna land in Alberta as something of a counter to Connor McDavid for Calgary. And the Flames have their new rink coming, so maybe it's not all doom and gloom in Cowtown. But Maddie, do you see any hope for the future there, or is this season already a write-off, or can Calgary maybe get it back on the rails?
Um, yeah, yeah, I think they're gonna have to sell some like Rasmus Whistle. And I mean Rasmus Anderson. It could be a trade bait chip, like if they can't get back on the rails. But you got Dustin Wolf. He's usually capable of playing great hockey, and you got Kadri and Calgary. You got Zari. There's they're still pretty young. I mean, Kadri isn't. He's but as old in the teeth. But like yeah, they got some good upcoming players, but I see them as sellers right now.
Yeah, I think I mean Dan, you can weigh in on Calgary as well. Whether you
Yeah.
think they're underachieving, Vancouver on the other hand, are they maybe overachieving a little bit out of the gate? Obviously, they're a 500 team, 5-5 under newly promoted rookie head coach Adam Foote, coming off an entertaining overtime victory over the Oilers on the weekend. Calgary on the other hand is the least points of any team in the league, following their 2-7-1 start. Has them at the bottom, like we said, kind of the front runners or the favorites for Gavin McKenna heading into tonight's full slate. But do you think they're both where they belong at this point, or where do you see those two teams going from here, Dan?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think I expected, well, Calgary to be below some of the teams that they're below, like, San Jose even, and um like, if we're looking in the East, like looking in the East, like they're last in the NHL but you know, we always talk about that sophomore slump, right? And Wolfie's going through one, and I know he's a more than capable goaltender. I know he'll find a way to rebound, and I know he'll be good for the Flames, but it might be too little, too late, and they maybe go on a surge at the wrong time and play their way out of that lottery pick. I don't want to say McKenna because there's a defenseman that's kind of pushing him right now to maybe take that spot. We can talk about that maybe on another pod. But to get that first overall and grab one of those two prizes, there's a franchise changing forward and a franchise changing D kind of sitting there in this draft this year.
And,
Um,
and obviously, I was just going to butt in and say that
yeah,
the franchise changing D is very familiar to the organization. They just drafted Cole Reshney out of Victoria, where he played with Keaton Verhoff, and
yeah,
both of them went to University of North Dakota. So you know the Flames are very familiar with Keaton Verhoff, and to keep that dynamic duo, smaller center, big D, together potentially in Calgary. So I'm sure Craig Conroy. Ryan Huska is a very competitive guy. He doesn't like the start for the Flames, even though he signed an extension to stay on as their coach and kind of groom this group through the next wave of the years to come. But definitely, I think Craig Conroy, he's
There's
drafted really well in recent years, and there are some big prizes that could end up in Calgary this year, especially if they decide to fully embrace the rebuild after a tough start. Like Maddie said, Rasmus Anderson or Nazem Kadri, some of these veteran guys, they could really embrace the youth movement, and it could be a fun team to watch in the next few years, depending who they get in this year's draft.
one thing about Conroy is he's proven to not necessarily like be non-aggressive about things. And I think what's hurting the Flames now is prior to Conroy with Tree living there, and that is they're always kind of scared to retool or rebuild. And that sometimes when you do that as an organization, it can hold you back, right? And Calgary's a beautiful city. I'm not gonna rip on the city. I like the city. I lived there. It's gorgeous. It's close to Banff. But the Saddle Dome is kind of like what Rexall used to be. And the only reason really Edmonton gets guys to come here right now is brand new rink, McDavid Draisaitl. And Calgary is about to get a new rink. And now they need to figure out that McDavid Draisaitl guy to have a few more guys go to Calgary to kind of because you're not really going to attract your top end free agent guys into Calgary that where you can rebuild through free agency, so to speak, anymore. Like teams used to be able to do is splash cash, right? And go no salary cap, give a bunch of money to guys, get them to come in. They're not unhappy because they're getting overpaid to be in a city. Well, the caps changed that. The tax-free states have changed that. So there's a lot of dynamics there where sometimes your fans and you guys as a group and a team have to sit there and say, listen, we're tearing it down to rebuild it. And they didn't do that for a very long time in Calgary, which shocked me when they were kind of habitually getting punted by the Oilers in round one or not even making the playoffs. And I think that's actually set them back 4 or 5 years to
And
the
that
point.
that might be kind of the opposite effect of the Daryl Cates or Ryan Smith factor. I know Murray Edwards and
Well,
that ownership group in Calgary might be pushing for them to still be a bubble team, the muddy middle, and let's maybe get
but
some playoff revenue to help afford the new
you're
rink or whatever the case.
but you're not going to get that. Like, guys, blow this up. Go get McKenna or Verhoff and get your cornerstones and get your guys because then 4 or 5 years after you have them, then you get your McDavid effect where you're getting guys that want to come and sign there. Like, listen, we love the Oilers. Obviously, everybody knows that you guys are wearing the jerseys. I've got the vintage hat on trying to bring some luck because they're wearing the vintage jerseys tonight and stuff. But like, the only reason we get certain guys that come to Edmonton right now is because we have McDavid and Draisaitl here. If we didn't win that lottery and McDavid wasn't here, I don't give a shit about Rogers being a new rink. Guys just wouldn't sign here. They sign here because there's a chance to play two of the best players on planet Earth. So Calgary, go get them, right? Go get them. And when your guys are coming up, our guys are aging out, and then you can take it to us and haunt our dreams. But if you're not willing to do it, well, okay, well, we're gonna keep eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner in your house. That's fine.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Calgary does have to really blow that up to really refuel the Battle of Alberta. And like I said, Edmonton is not exactly California, or Alberta is not exactly California. Those are the other two teams we haven't talked about in the Pacific, the Los Angeles Kings, the San Jose Sharks. Maybe two teams that are also kind of trending in different directions, opposite directions. Obviously, the Kopitars and Dowdies and even Darcy Kempers aren't getting any younger in LA. This is Kopitar's farewell season. He's announced he's retiring after this year. He's got a great legacy there in LA, but you see San Jose with Macklin Celebrini and their young energy guys that are, maybe they're not ready to win consistently, but they're one of the more entertaining teams in the league. LA has the better record to date there, and like I said, we'll be trying to make the playoffs for Kopitar. But San Jose fast becoming one of the more fun teams to watch, and Celebrini making a real strong case for that Canadian Olympic squad. If they're picking the team today, I think he's on it. Probably even ahead of a guy like Connor Bedard, who a couple of years ago was potentially the generational talent between the two. But Maddie, do you think that the Kings still finish ahead of the Sharks this year, and where do the Ducks rank in comparison there? Obviously, we can include the Ducks in that the three California teams. How do you like them finishing, Maddie? The Kings, Ducks, and Sharks.
Right, right behind the Oilers. Yeah. I also have Salabrini in my fantasy, and he's been hot. He's got 15 points in the first 10 games.
You even turned down a trade, a blockbuster. You told me for Sidney Crosby. That's a dynasty league. So Celebrini being young, he's a good guy to hang on to. But that's quite the trade you turned down. And do you think that the Sharks can ride this recent wave to maybe surge up the standings?
Yeah. They're gonna be young. They are young. Yeah, I think they can ride. They just gotta stick together, play hockey. Yeah. And then I think I think maybe there's a lot of talk about Kempe getting traded out of the LA right now too.
Yeah, he's a guy that one of those RFAs that isn't signed for next year, kind of a pending UFA. And are they, what direction are the Kings going to go without Kopitar? And obviously a guy like Doughty's so competitive too. I don't know how you really move his contract, although the cap going up. Ken Holland is the GM there now, and I'm sure he wants to put his stamp on that roster. And they still have young guys like Byfield who could obviously fit with Kempe and Fiala. Like that's still a competitive team. Dan, do you want to weigh in on the three? California teams, the Kings, Ducks, and Sharks, and how you sort of see them
Well, the
finishing out?
Kings are obviously trending down. Like they're ahead of the Oilers in the Pacific right now. But they're this is maybe their last dance, so to speak, as that group. Obviously with Kopitar retiring. I think Doughty's a guy that has earned enough respect through that organization where like Kenny Holland doesn't want to be the guy to move him unless it's a Doughty asking to go to a contender to try to get one more cup before he retires. But Doughty also strikes me as a guy that's just content with what he's done
Mhm.
and what he's accomplished. And I think, if anything, he plays out this contract and just kind of heads back to wherever he wants to have his summer home, probably on the Muskokas, being an Ontario boy, and just was a one team guy. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he gets that itch. Maybe something happens and he gets that itch to go back. I think the big question in San Jose is going to be they obviously have the pieces kind of in front of their goaltending, and or they're putting the pieces there. Some young guys. Is Askarov going to be like every other Russian goalie that comes in and just is unbelievable, like a Bobrovsky or a Shesterkin or a Vasilevsky or those guys? I mean, and if Askarov can figure that out in the next year or two and be that guy, then that's a scary, scary team. San Jose will get back to the days of the Thornton Chichu era where they're perennially in the playoffs and they're pushing and they probably, realistically could have or should have had a cup or two, really.
Yeah.
With some of the teams they had, they just unfortunately kind of kept falling short. But San Jose's kind of trending in that direction. And you got to love the job that Jersey's doing there and putting all these pieces together. And he's being, again, he's aggressive about it, which I love. I love watching aggressive GMs be like, I know exactly what I want to do and I'm going to go do it.
Yeah, especially like I said, they had the decade long there with
Oh,
Thornton, Marlowe, Couture, Logan Couture. Like they were
unbelievable.
stacked. Joe Pavelski. I mean, they had perennial contender. They were the team to beat in the Pacific for a lot of years. Obviously, this rebuild kind of happened overnight because Celebrini's maybe even better than people expected him to be. Will Smith,
Yeah.
William Eklund, Michael
Oh,
Misa. Now he's putting up points as an 18 or 19-year-old in the league. Another teenager that's got a kind of chipping in here and there already. And then, Sam Dickinson's coming on the back end and obviously Askarov. And then they drafted Joshua Ravensburg, another big goalie in the first round this year. So with their second pick after Misa. So they got two potential starting goalies. It looks like a team that is definitely trending in the right direction. But it's saying that is it in their best interest, Dan, to really push that forward and get the winning culture
yeah.
going, or do you think one more year
Be
outside the
patient.
playoffs and potentially in that I mean, imagine you get Dickinson Veroff as a pairing,
What?
two monsters on the back end, and away they go too, right?
Why would you push? What are you going to give up out of your roster if you're San Jose to push now into a playoff spot when none of your cornerstone guys are kind of ready to like go into the playoffs and learn how to lose and win? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, go get one more high draft pick. Like, and like, if you're gonna give something off your roster, like, really, are you gonna give up Like Jeff Skinner's not going to get you what you need to win. Tyler Toffoli might, but like then you're giving up what you need to win,
Right.
right? Like Barclay Goodrow maybe because he's a centerman, but again, like why? Why rush this right now if you're San Jose? The good thing about being in like a non-traditional hockey market is like you're kind of allowed to have patience because you're not front page news every day. Like they're behind the Chargers, they're behind the Golden State Warriors, like they're behind a lot of teams that take up, the Bay Area news, if you will, and
Mhm.
and so like if San Jose's in last place for another year outside of the guys inside of that organization, you're really not getting hammered on by fans to go win, right? Unless ownership needs to fill the Shark Tank every night, but
Yeah, I think they just signed a new lease with the city of San Jose to do a bunch of renos on the Shark Tank. And I seen an interview
so
with their owner who he's a pretty passionate, I mean, obviously he's one of the wealthier owners in
of
the NHL, but
course,
a pretty passionate guy. And his kids are somewhat involved in potentially taking the torch there too. As we see, obviously Daryl Cates' son being very involved, starting to
yeah,
attend the league meetings and stuff. He's kind of getting in there as well. But I think San Jose, I think, yeah, one more top 10 pick. And that's, a team that the Oilers are going to be trying to hold off in the coming years, and not
100%.
that McDavid and Draisaitl are getting that old, but that the Celebrinis and Misas and stuff, it still is a young man's game to some degree, and it's going to be a tough game to hold off as well as Anaheim there. But I guess last but not least in the Pacific, we do have our Oilers. They've lost two straight, five of their last seven, down 2-0 after the first period at home to Utah tonight. So
Down
unless
2-1 actually
2-1.
after the
Okay, Maddie's got an update. Who scored, Maddie?
Matthias Ekholm.
Oh, there you go. So, but still a less
There's a
than,
guy that needs to get going.
yeah, definitely. But a less than stellar start. Obviously, coming off consecutive losses in the Stanley Cup Final to the Florida Panthers. Outside of the ongoing goaltending concerns, there doesn't seem to be a lot of panic or much panic in Edmonton at this stage. Again, we're only 10 games. Tonight's game 11
There's
of the
all
season.
there's
Uh,
always panic in Edmonton, man.
I guess you're there, Dan. You could tell us. You're on the front lines. You're in Sherwood Park. So
There's always panic
what's it
here.
like there? Is it all about the goaltending, or what's the stress level like?
Yeah, I mean, like it's 10 games in and everybody's losing their mind that we're not 10 and 0 because this team should be 82 and 0 every year and run the table and like Stuart Skinner sucks and Matthias Ekholm's washed up and like Bouchard's the worst defenseman. Why'd we give him $11 million? Like the same old like panic of get rid of this guy, screw this guy. This is the best 10 games we've had in 3 years to start a season. We're notoriously a slow starting team. I don't know, like if we're not in the playoffs, 2-2. If if
There
we're
you go.
not
Another.
if we're not in the playoffs around American Thanksgiving, we've proven we can claw our way back in. Is that ideally what you want to do every year in a league like the NHL? No,
No.
absolutely not. But the one thing, and I don't question Knobloch a lot, or at least I haven't in his tenure, is like, man, leave the friggin' lines alone for a couple games. Like, I know we're trying to figure out what we have in Hyman's absence and Janmark's absence, and maybe Janmark does become a trade piece if like a Roslovic or some of these other guys like potentially work out. So you're trying to figure that out. But like Savoy's on the first line, Savoy's on the fourth line, Howard's on the first line, Howard's on the fourth line. Like, guys, you got Draisaitl and McDavid together. Like, yes, they want to play together. Yes, you have to keep your stars happy, but it's been proven time and time again that when we have to go to that nuclear option and kind of keep it there and keep them together, it like what's the point of having depth if you're not going to use it?
Mhm.
Keep them separate except for the power play or last couple of minutes of a period and go try to push for that tying goal, that insurance goal, that something. But you need those two guys to drive their own lines. And Nob started with them on the same unit. Then like Curtis Lazar is playing first line over like these young guys, Savoy and Howard, that are supposed to come in and be the replacements for Broberg and some of these older, slower guys we've lost. Like you put in top six guys in bottom 6 minutes, and then you're like, whoa, they're not producing. I wonder why. That's why. Like keep Savoy with Draisaitl if that's what you want, and keep Howard with McDavid for and Nugent Hopkins for 5 games. Like give them 5 or 6 games together, not 5 minutes of a period and go, oh, shit, it's not working. I better blow this up. Well, yeah, guys, it takes some time for guys to build some chemistry and some trust and learn tendencies. And that's been my biggest frustration with Knobloch this year is that like, oh, we're down 1-0, auto blender. It's
Right.
1-0. Like, you're not really instilling confidence in your guys. You're making them panic because you're panicking as the coach. Just ride it out, baby. Let's go. Like, see what happens.
Yeah, maybe preaching a little bit of patience, both for the fan base as a whole, that it's not time to blow it up, but also for
Well,
the coaching staff and to be patient with what you got. And like I said, they were able to lock up
there's a
their core, extending everyone, including McDavid. So the sky isn't falling in Edmonton.
there's
Several
a
young new
there's a hell
faces.
of a roster here. We know this. Do we love our goaltending? No. Is it serviceable in the regular season? To an extent. Do we know we need to shore that up? Yep. Is our defense like everybody rips on the D, but it's like they give up the most or the least amount of high percentage chances last year in the entire NHL. So I think part of it too is some of Knobloch's systems take away from the offense, and he's trying to get back into that trap defensive thing, which you do need to win, but you're stifling your stars a little bit on that too. So there's got to be some give and take both ways.
And obviously, Matty, Zach Hyman can't return soon enough. Although you want him to be fully healthy, no point rushing him back. He's a guy that's going to be a warrior for you in the playoffs again. But what do you make of the revamped roster and the early results, Matty? Do you think part of it is just Hyman's absence, or the young guys trying to fit in, or are you more so staying patient and confident and on that front, or are you one of the ones that do want to see a Stan Bowman make a move sooner or later?
Um, Everybody stop the panicking. I'll take a page of the Aaron Rodgers playbook here. Relax. Um, I mean, like, come on. Like, too much time in the blender, Knobloch. Like, how are these guys gonna get chemistry with each other if you're flipping lines every game? They're not. I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day. We just gotta we put them out there. You gotta be patient. I mean, you also got Matt Giovanni, who's brought here in the free agency. You got, like, from top to bottom, like, they do have a good roster. You just gotta use it properly.
I know you'd rather see them in the spin cycle than in the blender, hey, Maddie?
Putting teams in it for sure, we'd much rather have, but unfortunately, we seem to be the team getting spin cycled nightly
True.
right now.
I know.
For sure. And obviously, you don't want to be playing catch up every night, down 2-0 to start tonight. Is that the next move, logical move? I know Connor Ingram's down in Bakersfield. He's had some mixed results in his first couple appearances there. Hasn't played a lot of hockey lately, kind of in the same boat as Carter Hart to some degree for different reasons, but had to step away from the game. But is that a move that's even possible this year? I know they're somewhat close to the cap to really upgrade on Stuart Skinner and or Calvin Pickard? Like, do you think those two goalies are going to be the tandem going into the playoffs or at the trade deadline? Where do you see that, Dan? Do you think one or both are replaced?
I mean, how do you replace them? Like, teams know that if you go give Edmonton a bona fide start, like if Bobrovsky's in Edmonton, we're like 6 cups deep right now. We're loving life. We're all drinking champagne in Edmonton nightly. We're 82-0. Like, but teams know that if we give you Edmonton, the one thing you're missing, which is a legitimate bona fide 900 plus save percentage goaltender, we're the whole league screwed for 5 years. Minimum. Minimum. McDavid resigns for 8. As soon as that happens, you're screwed for 10 years potentially, right? Like, obviously, you still have to win the games and things happen. But, like, if Edmonton's getting 900 plus save percentage every night, they're going to score 3 goals, 4 goals a game. Like, then McDavid can cheat the game a little bit to create offense because he knows that Connor Hellebuyck's back there and he's going to make a save, right? So, like, yes, we want a change in net as Oiler fans. I understand. I get it. Where are we going to get it from? and what's the price we're going to have to pay?
Right.
Like, do you give up Savoy and Akey and Howard to get your starting goaltender? Because that's probably the ask, because every team's going to hold your feet to the fire.
Mm-hmm.
Or do you wait and hope that you can get a guy that's a Bobrovsky has a chance to do the ultimate hilarious thing and be a free agent this year and sign in Edmonton.
Right.
Like, he's not going to do it, but how funny would that be? Right? Like, do you get a Freddie Anderson in free agency and hope that he stays healthy enough to, is he an upgrade enough if he's healthy enough to win? Like, you teams aren't just going to give you a bona fide number one in the trade deadline when you're the Edmonton Oilers, right? And some of the other names like that we talk about, I don't think we go to a Kosa, Augustine, Devin Levi. They're unproven, and that's not what we need right now. That's not going to steady the guys in front of them to let them play their game. So, yes, I would love to see them upgrade. Do I think it's possible? No. If Stan Bowman pulls off the unthinkable and doesn't have to touch some of the things in the cupboard, because you got to remember, like, McDavid wants to win, and he wants to win more than one. And if he sees you like completely unstock the cupboard to go get a goaltender that's only got maybe 2 or 3 years left in the league, maybe he's done after these 2 years. Like, right? Because why would I stay? Like, we have nothing in the tank for me to continue to win here. So it's which way do you go? Maybe McDavid believes in Skinner. We don't know that. We don't know what happens behind closed doors. Maybe McDavid's vouching for him all day long to management, and he just wants to see some more defensemen come in. Like, we don't know, but as a fan, yeah, I mean, I think Skinner should be our backup. I think you don't give up on him. He's 26.
Mm-hmm.
Goalies don't hit the prime in the NHL till 28 to 30. But how are you going to get there? Like,
Yeah, I think the goaltending will be tricky to tweak this season, especially the current cap situation. But I do think the Oilers have more cap flexibility next offseason.
oh,
Thanks to McDavid's contract staying the same, right? Despite the ceiling going up, I think 9.5 million or up significantly. So that was awfully nice of him, and he'll no doubt want a bit of a say in how Edmonton spends the extra money he left on the table. And personally, I would think after being to two cup finals and seeing, kind of Skinner and Pickard trading off the net throughout the playoffs. I don't think that confidence is overly high. So I do expect goaltending to be a priority. And like you said, Dan, do they try and go for the big fish like the Swayman or Saros? Although those guys, haven't necessarily won cups either. Maybe it is a Bobrovsky short-term thing. Just let's
Swayman,
get.
Swayman might be the most interesting one that I think you could pry out of Boston at the cheapest rate, because they're kind of trending down and they're trying to rebuild. And so getting rid of a guy like Swayman could put them in that Verhoof McKenna discussion where they may not hold your feet to the fire and ask for Draisaitl and Savoy for Swayman, right? Not that Boston wants to do anyone favors, but they could live with Swayman being in the West and well, hey, we'll see when we get to the cup, and if we get to the cup, cool. Because that's probably going to be their mentality for the next 5 years.
And I don't think you're allowed to do double retention this year anymore at the
No,
trade
that's
deadline either. So that's going to be like Swayman's what, 9.5 or something. So yeah, I mean,
yeah.
unless they're taking, and we don't want to continue to be Darnell Nurse's biggest whipping boy, because I do think he's one of McDavid's kind of core
He's
guys that he likes having around. But
he's not
that
going anywhere for two reasons. Yeah, he's part of the core. He's part of that group of guys that want to win together. And two, that's a pretty untradeable contract for what he brings to you, right? And he, the funny thing about Nurse is we were talking about Nickelback today actually in hockey and how polarizing they are. Everyone says they hate them, but then you put on a Nickelback song and everybody knows all the words to him. And Darnell Nurse is a pretty polarizing guy too, because when he decides to just be big and mean and fast and physical and not this thinking he's offensively like Paul Coffey, Ray Bork, sort of Bobby Orr guy, and Darnell simplifies his game. He's still not a $9.5 million defenseman, but you're not as upset with him as you are when he wants to try to make plays that like are just a little bit above his skill set at the NHL level at that speed, right? Like, don't get me wrong, he's infinitely more skilled than 99% of people on planet Earth. That's why he's in the NHL. But I just wish he would just be sort of that north-south hit ya, mean, fight once a game defenseman. And then I think you'd see Edmontonians sort of settle down about who he is on our roster, right?
And I gotta get Maddie get in here because any mention of Nickelback reminds me of Maddie. He's been singing Rockstar at karaoke lately. He's becoming a local celebrity. We won't make you sing on the podcast, Maddie, but
Oh, get her going.
what do you think about the Nickelback reference with Nurse and obviously back to the goaltending and some of the targets that are out there, if not for this season, maybe for next?
Yeah. I I think Mazik and Swaven and Bennington are my top three targets right now. And then yeah, um Nickelback's one of my favorite. Well, it is my favorite band, right behind Offspring, which we're gonna go see in January.
Yeah, we
Love
are.
that you admit that, Maddie. Not a lot of people would. Love it, buddy.
Maddie's a huge Nickelback fan,
Love
and
it.
he knows every word to every song. So yeah, he's always pumped when Nickelback comes on. But I mean, you mentioned Merzilikins and some of the other guys there too, Maddie. One guy that I'm sort of keeping an eye on as a younger option, and again, maybe we missed the boat with the Jesper Wallstad. Xavier Borgo. Maybe we had to draft that goalie of the future. And I know the Oilers are pretty excited about a couple of their European goaltending prospects that they've drafted. The Finnish kid this year is actually trending up maybe even higher than Emil Vinny, who was a top prospect in Finland a few years ago. But the Salonen guy they drafted this year and the Samuel Jansson guy, like they got some prospects coming in goal that, I wouldn't want to say we're ready to hitch the future to these kids yet, but there's another Finnish guy in Buffalo, UPL, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. I obviously watched him at the 2019 World Juniors, won Finland a gold medal in Vancouver with that tournament. He was great there, beat the Hughes brothers, Jack and Quinn, and obviously I think UPL is a guy that you look at Linus Ullmark couldn't make it in Buffalo and then wins a Vezina in Boston. I really think if Buffalo is happy with Alex Lyon and they see Devin Levi as the future and especially they got Colton Ellis there now. They're running three goalies. I don't know what they're doing, but I think UPL, as far as a guy you could maybe squeeze into the cap this year, and even if you didn't want to send Skinner back the other way or Buffalo didn't have a fit for him, I think they got too many goalies in Buffalo. Maybe UPL is a target that is flying a little under the radar right now. He was hurt to start the year, but I don't know if either of you guys want to weigh in. Dan, do you think that's a goalie that could potentially be a fit in Edmonton?
But why? But again, why? Like, he's not like
You wouldn't have more confidence in him than Skinner if Skinner was or even like I said, maybe Skinner's the 1B all of a sudden.
so. Okay, yeah, Edmonton's better than Buffalo. 3.07 career GAA with an 898 save percentage. So we're just knocking on that 900 door, right? And again, okay, yeah. So Edmonton's better than Buffalo. Edmonton, plays a better defensive system, things like that. But that's not like it's not like the de facto starter. Like it was supposed to be Jack Campbell, right?
Right.
This is where I feel bad for Skinner. He's not supposed to be doing what he's doing right now. He's supposed to be backing up Campbell and taking his 20 games, 25 games and learning how to be the guy.
Right.
And we've sped up that process on Skinner immensely. And put him in a position he's not even supposed to be in right now. Good for him for getting us to back-to-back cup finals and, not winning us either of them, but also not necessarily quote unquote losing them either. I'm as hard on Skinner as anybody. You can ask a lot of my friends, but I don't think we give up on him, but I don't think UPL is the guy that he's not going to come in and show Skinner the ropes. That was supposed to be Campbell. I was hoping we could try to pry Flurry out of not
Right.
Winnipeg, Minnesota. Like a guy like that,
Mhm.
Swayman, okay, he comes in, he's going to be your guy for a little bit longer, and maybe Skinner has to go the other way because of that, but I'd be okay with that. And then you can go get a UPL or a Kosa or an Augustine to play behind Swayman and learn. And then you've got that evolution of goaltending that we really haven't had that in Edmonton in a long time, where we've had a de facto one sort of training a backup. I guess Curtis Joseph, Tommy Salo, comes to mind where we've had like that de facto one, and then we've just sort of had that backup. It's sort of been a platoon for a long time that's been very unsuccessful. Yes, we've had horrible hockey teams in front of some goaltenders. And oh my, do I feel bad for some of those guys that had to come in and try to clean up that mess. Now we have a really, really good hockey team, and we just can't seem to go get that like de facto one guy, which I think Swayman could be. And so I hope that we look that way because he's in the East. I don't think going younger and getting an unproven guy is what we need right now. And if we've got to give up on Skinner early to go get a Swayman and then bring in a young guy to learn from him, fine. But if we're gonna not give up on Skinner, then it's got to be a super old guy that's only got 2 or 3 years left on their leash, and Skinner's learning from him a little bit. You know what I mean? And put Skinner in that place he was supposed to be in for the 5 years that Campbell was supposed to be good for us.
I was gonna say you're probably right. It wasn't the Wallstead miss. It was probably the Campbell miss when they were in the conversation of Campbell or Darcy Kemper or Jacob Markstrom when Calgary was looking at moving on from him.
Allmark was available then. Just saying.
Right? Yeah,
Freddie
Allmark.
Anderson.
Yeah. So that was the big misstep. But I know, Maddie, you must be keeping an eye on the ball game here. I see the Jays are up 6-1 in the middle of the ninth, so we're only 3 outs away from guaranteeing there'll be a game six back in Toronto on Friday. So that's exciting, and I think the Oilers might have just scored here as well. So we're getting
Yeah, they
all
just
the
tied it up 3-3.
yeah
I just
3-3.
don't know who
So
scored yet.
all good news on the updates as we
I
shift
should just
our
keep
attention.
hammering. Every time I hammer on the Oilers tonight, they score. So
Right. So yeah, keep it going, and I guess lots of good news, lots of positive updates as we turn our attention to the Eastern Conference. We're kind of halfway through here. We'll spend a little less time on the Eastern Conference and get into some predictions at the end because I know everybody's eager to see who we're going to pick to win the cup because no one's expecting us to pick the Oilers for the third year in a row, but. Nonetheless, Maddie, let's take a look at the Atlantic Division, which was tight going into tonight, only 6 points separating top to bottom. Montreal off to a great start at 7-3, just added Detroit at 6-3. I don't know what Detroit's doing now, but they were up on St. Louis earlier. Ottawa being the other club above 500 heading into tonight. I know they blew out Boston last night, but they were having a tough go in Chicago earlier. But Maddie, what do you make of that Atlantic Division? And especially there's three Canadian teams there, Montreal, Ottawa, and Toronto. Toronto's currently in third among the three Canadian teams, or were prior to tonight's win. They beat Calgary, barely held on or barely pulled ahead of Calgary to win. But what do you make of the three Canadian teams in the Atlantic Division, and how do you see them finishing, Maddie? Who's the best Canadian team out of Montreal, Ottawa, and Toronto?
Um, yeah, Montreal's got some good pieces. They're playing really well right now. They got Soskowski, Hudson, Caulfield. Um, yeah, they're gonna be strong. But like, um, I think they're gonna finish at, I think it's gonna be Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto.
And is that because you think that the Marner loss was pretty big there, or you just think Ottawa and Montreal are teams that are on the rise, and or what makes you think Toronto would be third there?
Um, right now they don't have the goaltending.
Yeah, that's true.
Um, Wall's hurt. Stall's he's holding them in games, some games. But yeah, Charles got nice too. They got Matthews, they got Nylander, they got some good pieces. But it's like if you don't have a guy who can stop the puck, the red light's going off more than once.
Yeah. And they extended Solars too, so it's an interesting decision there. Everybody was saying that Toronto's goaltending was so solid going into this year, but obviously the injury bug has been a big thing for Joe Spo. Although I don't know if he's hurt or he's away for a personal situation. But Dan, maybe you could weigh in on the three Canadian teams in that division. But obviously, we expect that the Florida teams could potentially Panthers and Lightning be back in that playoff picture. And obviously, are you getting lower on Toronto, or do you expect the Leafs to sort of get out of this early season funk and maybe rise all the way to the top of that division again?
I mean, the Leafs are still good. Like Did they lose some of their offensive firepower from the regular season, which I think is what's hurting them right now because their goaltending's down? Sure, Marner's creative. Marner's a playmaker. Marner puts up points. Marner sets up guys. Marner does a lot of things. And so losing a guy that can take some of the attention away from the Matthews and Nylanders, um, like on the ice from other teams' perspectives of like keying on him, like I think that hurts them a little more than they want to let on or agree. And they just don't have that like de facto replacement. Like Matty Nyes is a good hockey player, but he's not Mitch Marner creativity wise, and he's not Mitch Marner. Max Domi is again, he's a skilled hockey player, but he's not Mitch Marner. And so I think losing a guy that can create offense and make these passes and hit these one-timers and do the things that Marner was able to do, where, if Matthews wasn't going, but Marner was, then teams would kind of focus on Marner, and then that would give Matthews a little bit of that room and that space to kind of get going. But now Matthews isn't going to have that luxury. Like teams are gonna be like, yeah, we'll just take Matthews away from you because your depth is a little bit gone there from an offensive standpoint, right? Um, they still got Berube coaching. Like you know, like they're not going to be terrible. I think the Senators might be the one team that of those three kind of sputters the most. Um, and so if we're talking like just Canadian teams, yeah, like you're gonna have Toronto, Montreal kind of fight it out. That's gonna be a lot of fun for that rivalry. And then I think Ottawa doesn't necessarily go too far away, but I think that you'll see them again. They're just still a little bit young. They're still a little bit learning, and um, I love Brady Tkachuk, love how he plays, but he does take the costly penalties sometimes, and that could end up costing him. He's got to mature a little bit in picking his spot still, I think, to do some of the things that he does that brings the energy to the game. Doesn't need to always be right in the thick of it and fighting every game and every time yet. They need him on the ice, but Stützle's coming along. Like, oh my, how good is he right now too for
Yeah.
them? So
Especially
that's
with
like
Kachuk being out right now, Suits really stepped up.
that's like one of the probably one of the hardest sort of divisions, if you will, to like figure out because like we're ripping on the Oilers for their start, but look at Tampa 3-4-2.
Mm-hmm.
Who would have said Tampa's going to be 3-4-2 with John Cooper, like
Right.
arguably the best coach in the NHL right now, right? And we all know Florida's better than 5-5.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's just a matter of time till their Stanley Cup hangover legs are gone and the vodka's out of their system and they're playing some good hockey again, right? So that Atlantic Division and that East Side's going to be a tough one to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
The Yzer plan is coming together in Detroit. Hey,
Yeah, Todd McClellan, and I seen they beat up on Jordan Binnington again tonight. So yeah, it's
yeah,
maybe that helps Binnington become an option for the Oilers as far as that goaltending. But the Red Wings are definitely a team that, like I said, the Yzer plan. A lot of us, kind of ragged on or doubted in recent years, but it seems like slowly these Marco Caspers and now obviously Sandin Pielika is a regular in the lineup, ASP on the back end, and you mentioned they got Gibson and Talbot as these two veteran goaltenders battling for the net, but they also have Kosa and Augustine coming. So it does seem like that plan is they might be in a transitional year. And obviously Patty Kane's been in and out of the lineup and JVR Van Riemsdyk's been in and out of the lineup, but it feels like the pieces might be there that Detroit could be a dangerous team. And Maddie, do you see that, or do you think the Red Wings are kind of more like the Sabres, or what do you make even of the Sabres? Because they're another team that I think they lost their first 3 or 4 games. There was jerseys hitting the ice at home, and now they're back to 500 and playing a kind of like San Jose, an entertaining brand of hockey with a really young group. Could we see like is this division maybe the one to really watch as far as the battles for the wild card spots or even the 2-3 seed in that division? Because especially depending when Matthew Tkachuk comes back and what's up with Barkov. But this division looks pretty wide open. What do you think, Maddie? Do you think the Florida teams are still going to rise, or do you think some of these upstart Buffalo, Detroit teams are going to, and obviously Montreal still has to be considered one of those as well, in Ottawa. But is this the toughest division to predict as of today, do you think?
Yeah, it's the toughest. That's why I think the cup's going to come out of the West this year because everyone's going to beat the crap out of each other in the East. I mean, you got Shane Pinto playing well. He's coming on. Um, Like, yeah, I mean, Florida took a big hit losing Barkov, their big defensive centerman. So, yeah, it's going to come down to the last day of the NHL playoff regular season to see who's going to make that wild card spot.
And obviously Detroit has the hot start. Is Buffalo the sleeper team there that nobody's giving any? I mean, they're obviously in the longest playoff drought in North American sports at 14 years. But do you think the Sabres, either of you guys, would anybody be? Again, we talked about their goaltending maybe being very up in the air, but they do have some really, especially I know they got Kesselring, who was actually drafted by the Oilers, but Kesselring and Byram played together tonight. I think they got Owen Power. Obviously, they have Darlene still there. They got quite the defense and a lot of young, fun forwards to watch. Almost maybe like the Utah thing going on a little bit, or is this just going to be year 15 without the playoffs in Buffalo?
Year 15 without the playoffs in Buffalo. And I hate to say it, but I mean, like who are they who are they going to get over? Like Florida's going to go on, Panthers are going to go on a tear here soon. And then that's going to vault them. They're I guess only 4 points back early in Montreal first, so it's like crazy to think that or say that. It's tight. But like I just don't see Montreal slowing down. The like, Montreal's one Achilles is the same thing as all the other teams we talk about is like goaltending.
Mhm.
Dobbs is Sony, he's okay. Montembeau's okay. Like,
And
you
Fowler's
know,
coming, yeah,
yeah.
potentially.
Like, the Detroit Red Wings have arguably the two best goaltenders outside of, Bobrovsky being in that division.
And
But like
Vasilevsky.
if you're looking at depth of goaltending, Talbot, and Gibson, I mean,
Mhm.
they're right there. And the one thing in Detroit is like Emmett Finney. I mean,
Right, yeah. What a
oh,
story!
wow.
What a
We're
story!
talking about Calder trophies for these guys, and we're not even talking about Finney, who's a rookie, 8 points plus 7 in 9 games. I mean, like, come on, right? So if he doesn't slow down, you're not catching Detroit. Buffalo may catch Ottawa for a wild card spot. That could be your battle for that last wild card spot. But I just I don't see Tampa being this bad for this long either.
Right, yeah. And Boston probably bring up the rear there,
Boston wants to
maybe,
finish
but
line. I
yeah,
think Boston's embracing a rebuild there. And that's where like it interests me for the Oilers that like maybe they can go get Swayman, right? Like, do they want him? I don't know. Do I want him? Yeah. But like I think Boston's just fully, completely bought into like, hey, we're rebuilding. Like as soon as they moved Marchand, you kind of knew that culture that with the Bruins like that it's shifting, right? So it's a matter of keeping Pasternak happy right now, where they're not that bad, right? But like there's talk of Zaka going to Vancouver.
Right, yeah.
They're like Boston's clearly looking to rebuild. So I think you see Boston continue to kind of slide. I think Tampa comes up. I think Florida obviously comes up. And then unfortunately for Buffalo, you're gonna have to battle sort of the Leafs, Wings, Canadians, Senators for those things. And I just don't see Buffalo superseding those teams.
And we do have a Jays win to report. It's the big 6-2 win they held on in the
We have
the
a
bo the bottom of the ninth. I see the alerts, the texts are flying in. Everybody's pumped for the Jays. And
we have a McDavid goal to report. He is now tied with Ryan Reeves for two
oh,
goals on the season. So prolific goal scorer Ryan Reeves is now got Connor McDavid nipping at his heels.
there you go. And somebody else I saw a text come in. I think it was a Canucks fan, obviously, but they said Skinner's so bad tonight. The Oilers should have been up 4-0. But so I guess we'll have
Wow.
to see the highlights and see what kind of quality of goaltending they were getting to fall behind early tonight. But like I said, they got that the offense to win these hot fire wagon high scoring games. And then the last division, the Metro. Often gets overlooked or left for last with us on the podcast, but even though they have the two best players from the last 20 years there in obviously Pittsburgh, Sidney Crosby, and Washington's Alex Ovechkin. Jack Hughes is another young, exciting guy. He's almost leading the league in scoring. Has the Devils topping the Eastern Conference. They had an 8-1 record. I think they're getting hammered by Colorado tonight, but they were ahead of Crosby's Penguins, who again, I think that's a team that a rookie head coach that's not getting much love is Dan Muse. A lot of people didn't know who Dan Muse was when Pittsburgh hired him as the Kyle Dubas, outside the box hire. But the Penguins started 7-2-1. They got another overtime loss tonight, so 7-2-2. They're right there in a bit of a resurgence with their old guys, Crosby, Malkin, Letang, Erik Karlsson. They're finding ways to win. Their goaltending's bounced back with Tristan Jarry and Artur Silovs. But then you're right behind them. You got Colorado and Washington, are two teams that have obviously they had 6 wins and kind of rounding out the top four there with obviously New Jersey being the big riser to the top of the division, but you got New Jersey, Pittsburgh, Washington, Carolina. Are those the teams we should be keeping an eye on there, Dan? Or obviously some people think there could be a resurgence from the Rangers under JT Miller and Mike Sullivan. We're all enjoying the Islanders again with the excitement around this year's first overall pick, Matthew
Beef
Schaefer,
Daddy.
and his point per game start to his rookie season. Well, what do you make of that division? Are we overlooking it? Is that division
No,
maybe more fun than we realize?
no. I mean, hey, if you've got Crosby and Malkin on your team, well, and especially Crosby, you've got a chance to win every night because he's maybe not dynamic as he was maybe when he was younger, but in my opinion, he's still one of the all-around best players in the NHL, even at his quote-unquote age, younger than me, but and so when you have Crosby in the lineup and that type of a leadership, I mean, just look at the four nations. Canada wasn't supposed to win. The US was supposed to kill us. They're way better. They're the best. They're deeper. They're this, they're that. Yeah, we still have Crosby. We still have that X factor. We still have that leadership. We still have that heart, that determination, that like I'm gonna find a way to go get this done mentality that Crosby he's had since he's joined the league. And so you're seeing him kind of get reignited by Mr. Muse there. And I think Crosby, Malkin, Letang kind of know we got 1 or 2 years left at this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's at least try to make them good, right? Before they go away, and then they've got goaltending playing at or above the level that they need them to in Silovs and Jari in that right now. And even Blomqvist has come in and played some good games for them. So, he's 4-0. You don't want to look at his stats, but he's 4-0, right? He's pulling a Skinner.
Yeah.
Bad stats, but winning hockey games because the team's finding ways to win in front of them. And but is it a sustainable thing for Pittsburgh beyond maybe this year? I don't know. But as long as Crosby's there, you got a chance to win. And with the Devils, it's about time.
Mm-hmm.
It's about time. They're supposed to have been good for like 2 years now, and they just couldn't figure it out. And maybe our boy coach in there who left the Leafs, Sheldon Keefe, got himself out of Dodge, and he can just go enjoy life in New Jersey. He's such a player's coach, and you can tell that. You can tell that the guys want to play for him. Is he like maybe too much of a player's coach and too lenient, and that's why he couldn't get sort of the Leafs over the hump? Maybe. So maybe he's your guy that you bring in to get the most out of guys, and then you bring in a Berube to try to get him through the door or through the hump. But he's got those guys enjoying hockey again, enjoying life again in New Jersey. And I've been expecting this out of them for a while now. And they just never seem to put it all together. And then again, arguably two of the best goaltenders in the division in Markstrom and Allen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what a tandem. What a tandem. Right? And so, Carolina.
I wish we had that tandem.
Imagine if Markstrom signs with us instead of the Flames.
Right? Yeah, coming from Vancouver. Yeah.
Right? Well, yeah. Right? Like Carolina, again, can never count out a Rod Brindamore coach hockey team.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Ovi's last year, maybe not. Washington might be playing for him.
Right.
I don't think it's as hard to call as the Atlantic because I don't see Columbus making noise.
Rick Tocchet and the Flyers, yeah.
But the Rick Tocchet and the Flyers is something to watch for a couple of years away.
Mm-hmm.
Can he get Zegras and Mishkov and those guys to buy into a team game?
Mm-hmm.
Which Talk's usually pretty good at that. But again, I don't see them pushing yet. And so does the age of the Pittsburgh Washington core come into play down the stretch? Or, well, Ovi's going to get a break during the Olympics because Russia can't go. Crosby won't. He's going to be playing in the Olympics, right? But so it's you worry about the age a little bit maybe with those teams and the 82 game grind catching up to them. and Carolina jumping up, and maybe the Rangers figure out. But I think there's some turmoil in New York. Like I don't
JT
know.
Miller. That's why.
Oh, JT Miller's a competitor. Like God, you gotta love the guy. He's a competitor. But yeah, like I just don't see a lot of movement in where these standings are now, outside of Columbus trending down and maybe the Rangers trending up and pushing a, a Pittsburgh down. But and that's where you're gonna then look at Pittsburgh, Washington fighting for that 3-4 seed. Carolina, notoriously slow starts. It's Rod Brindamore. They'll be fine. They're going to be in the playoffs somewhere.
And Maddie, you kind of agree with those assessments on that division. Obviously, the Devils, like you said, Dan, they've had the first overall picks: Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier. Like this is the team. They've had other, top first round picks. Dawson Mercer was kind of a mid round guy, but young Luke Hughes, Simon Nemitz. Like they got pieces in place there, especially when you solidify the goaltending with Markstrom and Allen. That this team should have been trending up this way the last couple of years. Pittsburgh, we kind of thought might have trended down. There was actually rumors, swirling preseason trade rumors around Crosby to Colorado or Montreal in particular, perhaps even Florida when Alexander Barkov went down. He might be out for the entire season, including playoffs. Obviously, a 7-2-2 start is going to quiet the rumors around Crosby. But Matty, do you think he stays a Penguin for the duration of his career? Do you think a trade could be possible to join his good buddy Nathan MacKinnon? Obviously, they do a lot of Tim Hortons promo together. Could they end up together in Colorado or back with his boyhood team that had his dad as a goalie at training camp back in the day in Montreal, or even the Rat, Brad Marchand with the pesky Panthers? They might be line mates again at the Olympics, Crosby and Marchand. Do you see any chance that Sidney Crosby moves, or obviously not if Pittsburgh keeps this up?
Um, Not a chance if Pittsburgh keeps this up right now. They got Jakob Kindle, who is a Calgary Hitman.
Ben, yeah.
Yeah, and Carter Yakmanchuk too. Like they're gonna be they're gonna be a good team again. Like if they keep this up, I don't see Crosby going anywhere.
I don't think Crosby wants to.
No.
He kind of said that at the start of training camp, right? He kind
Like
of tried to snuff that out. Yeah.
like you look at Crosby, the type of guy that he is. He's won three. Like he's he's what I wish Tom Brady would have been for the Patriots. Like it just never left. Like I think Crosby's accomplished enough in his career
Yeah.
that like yeah, you don't really like Nuge. I don't want to jinx it for us Oiler fans, but like Crosby could be one of the few guys, and Nugent Hopkins could be one of the few guys that are just sort of one team athletes in this generation and this era. And there's something to be said about guys that just kind of play for one team. And I think Crosby wants that. I think Crosby just wants that one team on his resume. He was there. He achieved greatness with them. He got them to the pinnacle. He got himself to the pinnacle of Stanley Cup, Olympic golds, World Championships, things like that with one team and one team only. And like that's that's more of a legacy in my opinion than like going to Colorado and getting your fourth cup.
Right.
Like it's it was different for a guy like Ray Bourque who had never won the cup, and that was his opportunity to go get one. Like if Crosby hadn't got one yet for some reason, nobody's gonna hold it against him now if he decides to go do it again either. But like, is that gonna completely alter Crosby's timeline and legacy of who he is to the NHL? No. And so I play his couple years out in Pittsburgh, get your swan song, announce when you're done, give it 2 years so you can hit every building and every building can honor you in the right way, right? Or no, they go to every building now. Never mind, they changed the schedule. So
Yeah.
tell everybody when you're gonna be done and let Canadians, if you will, celebrate Crosby every time he comes to Canada. Just like Ovechkin should be getting celebrated every time he comes into a building when he says it's going to be his last one, and let those two guys play their years out in Washington and Pittsburgh and be one team wonders, and let's celebrate them the right way in the legacy that they are for those two teams.
And especially the fact that Crosby and Malkin do
Oh,
have their cups, like you said, they can still get to that next gear or that next level and
We're
take
not
over games. But they were kind of that nuclear option before McDavid and Draisaitl, kind of that
we're
1-2 punch, and they
listen,
still producing. Yeah.
we're not talking about Crosby going and putting his 11th ring on and shattering a record for how many cups have been won. And if that's the case, man, go do it. Like 4 cups versus 3 cups isn't going to change his Hall of Fame.
Mhm.
Like, just let the guy play in Pittsburgh and stop talking about him going to Colorado or going here or going there. Like, let Crosby just play.
Yeah,
And if he,
another Olympic gold might another
oh,
golden goal might help that legacy even
yeah,
even more to be
for
one of the Mount
100%.
Rushmores.
right?
100%. If he gets another one, was he got 3 Olympic golds? I don't think that's happened for an NHL player, just mostly because NHL players weren't in the Olympics till 98,
Yeah.
right? And Mark Crawford decided not to let Gretzky score in a shootout. And then, yeah, but anyway.
But yeah, you think he's got to be on that Mount Rushmore if Canada can pull off this Olympic gold again
Boy,
in February in Italy.
I mean, I think he already is if you look at his body of work from like NHL and international standpoint. I think from just solely international, there might be a few guys ahead of Crosby or creep into debate, right? I mean, Ryan Smith was Captain Canada for how long, right? Because he would just go play in every tournament and win golds for Canada. Was he like the prolific NHL guy that Crosby was? No. But on an international stage, you could argue that he has as much or more accolades for our country, right? Because we look at it from a pro level, but I mean, like World Juniors for Crosby, World Championships for Crosby, same as Smitty, World Juniors, World Championships, Olympics. So but yeah, just enough with this speculation of where he's going to go.
Right.
Just the guy's going to stay in Pittsburgh, and if he decides he doesn't want to, he decides he doesn't want to. He doesn't owe them anything anymore.
Mhm.
He's done everything he could for that franchise, but I just don't see Crosby leaving Pittsburgh. I think he's going to play out however many years are left on his deal, and he maybe signs for one more after, depending on his body feels or how his wife or girlfriend, whatever. I don't even know if I think he's pretty private about that stuff, but
Mhm.
maybe he wants to shut her down and start that family life and do that family stuff, right?
For sure, yeah, and definitely we'll have another show between now and the Olympics in February for those predictions. But I know you guys probably are itching to see the end of the Oiler game because it's a high score and fun one. So we'll try and get some predictions in here for everybody at the end. And Maddie, we'll start with you. But assuming Matthew Tkachuk and Barkov are healthy for the playoffs, or Florida is able to replace Barkov with someone like we'll say Kadri if it's not going to be Crosby. Are the Panthers still the team to beat in their quest for the three-peat this season? The fact that they were able to lock up a lot of their core took kind of that hometown. I know Gary Bettman doesn't want us talking about the no tax state discounts, but whatever you want to say to keep Ekblad and Marchand and obviously they have Seth Jones there and Bobrovsky for another run. Do you think that Florida's still the team that if Vegas doesn't scare you, are the Panthers the team that scare you the most, assuming they can get healthy for the playoffs?
Yeah, they're all a bunch of dirty rats. Might put some rat poison. Yeah, they scare me still. Um, why wouldn't they? So they got
Right.
Ekblad, um, Brad Marchand, that little past Matthew Kachuk,
Mhm.
um, for Hakey, um, from top to bottom, yeah, they scare me. But can they go out and replace Barkov with a defensive center?
Yeah, I think such a big part of that'll be if Barkov can get back in time for playoffs and have an impact. Obviously
Do they
missing
want to? Do they want to replace? Like, remember the
right
salary cap rules have changed for the playoffs now. So, like,
playoffs. Yeah.
do you want to just limp in and then get your roster healthy and go? Because, like,
Mhm.
obviously that roster can win. We know it's
Coming in
kick the
as a wild card, they
kick,
can go
kick
all
the
the way.
crap out
Yeah.
of us 2 times in the finals, so
Mhm.
we know it can win. Like, now it's a new dynamic with the way the caps changed in the
Mhm.
playoffs, right? So it's like you're not really going to go one for one, Barkov for somebody else, and then be able to play them both in the playoffs. And
Right.
somebody's got to stay out of the lineup. So it's like now you have to look at it from a do we do enough just to get in and be like LA as a 7 seed, 8 seed and just run because Jonathan Quick catches fire and a bunch of guys catch fire. Like there's a new dynamic now to the playoffs that GMs have to think about. It's not as simple as like, oh, I'll bring in a replacement for Barkov at 8 million, but now I can't bring him into my lineup.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a great point with the playoff salary cap is it's the act of the lineup you dress can't be exceed the regular season salary cap,
Right.
which always you used to be able to
You can
have your
be
LTIR ringers come playoffs
your
and
roster can be over the cap, but your lineup nightly cannot be over the cap, right?
right,
So
yeah. And I know my predictions had the Oilers, and maybe a little bit of the homer factor again, but my predictions that I put out on the blog had the Oilers knocking off the Panthers in 7 games, Edmonton making the most of home ice advantage in the Cup Final game because I thought Florida might be limping in as a wild card, wouldn't have that home ice. So I had third time as the charm for Edmonton, and I'll stick with that even with the not 10 game sample size, but. What about you, Dan? What's your we gotta get at least a Stanley Cup prediction out of you.
oh, I mean, I still think the Oilers are the team to beat in the West. Even the Florida Panthers knew that. I mean, Kachuk even said, I knew they'd be back. I knew it would be a repeat. I still think with everything that's going quote unquote wrong for the Oilers right now, I do think that they will be the team to beat. I think they settle down. I think they figure out their lines. I think Hyman's coming back. They don't need to rush him back. And I think that they'll be okay. And I think that they do find a way to get out of the West. I think they're more physical than Vegas. I think they're a little bit deeper um, from a from a standpoint of like if guys go down they went to a I don't love losing a guy like Corey Perry in that experience, but they got younger, they got faster, and so I still think the Oilers come out of the West. Um, man, how do you bet against Florida? Florida hinges on health. Florida
Yeah.
hinges on getting that lineup healthy for playoffs and limping into the playoffs. If Florida does that, I think you're gonna get what nobody wants to see in a three-peat of that final. Um, and I'm gonna pick the Oilers again because it's got to go right eventually for us. How many games I don't know. If Florida can't, if Florida can't get healthy, um, you might get an all Canadian matchup. You might get an Edmonton Toronto or an Edmonton Montreal final.
That would be awesome for sure. And Maddie, what about you? Who do you got facing off for the Cup? Who's bringing it home this year? Do you see that sort of potential? Are we going to sweep it and all say that it's going to be Florida Edmonton for the third year in a row, and hopefully no Matthew Tkachuk Pink Pony Club celebrations?
And then annoying song. Uh, um, yeah, I think I still see Edmonton coming out of the West. Their defense is a little bit stronger, heavier. Regula, Stetcher. Um, yeah. Um, if they can figure out their lines and stop using the blender, we call that blender confusion because nobody knows who playing with who. Um, yeah, if we can get them some chemistry, then this team rolls
And
because we're younger, we're faster now. We're not as old as in the tooth as we were last year. Um, I think we can compete with Florida if I say Edmonton in 6.
if it's not Florida, who do you think's the next best team in the East, or who do you think could? Do you think like Dan, it could be a Montreal or Toronto, or do you think maybe a team like New Jersey just keeps riding this early season success?
Yeah, mm, could see like
Pittsburgh.
yeah, maybe when
Pittsburgh, yeah. Imagine Crosby McDavid
the
Cup final if Pittsburgh somehow
Crosby
some
losing to McDavid to pass the torch.
right somehow they turn
right?
into a buyer and the Penguins are shopping at the deadline to bring in some of these guys. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the East is wide open unless Florida gets
Yeah,
healthy, in my opinion.
yeah.
What about any other predictions you guys want to put out there? Surprise playoff teams or new playoff teams from
How
last
about
season?
how about a non-hockey prediction? I wore this shirt. It's my Bayern Munich shirt. It's a
Yeah,
soccer prediction.
there you
And they're
go.
playing they're playing tomorrow, and if they win, they will set a record for the most wins to start a season in the five top major European leagues. So
Wow.
I got a prediction that Bayern's gonna beat Real Madrid's 13 straight wins to start a year. They're gonna go 14. They're sitting at 13, they're tied, they're gonna get 14 tomorrow.
Nice. That's what you're watching tomorrow, obviously. Then and that's your how
Yeah.
you're starting the day. That'll be an early game,
Yeah,
I
it's an
assume.
early one. I think I forget what time they play at, but yeah, I'll be watching that one.
Nice.
Yeah. If the playoffs started today, we'd be having facing LA for the first time in 4 years. We would be playing Colorado in the first round.
Is that the way it's shaping up right now? Edmonton would be the wild card against Colorado, depending on the results. And obviously we
Yeah.
got 70 some games to go. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's early, but that would be quite the
Edmonton's not even in the playoffs if they start today.
yeah, crazy. Yeah. See, David McKinnon first round would be seeing
Be
one
the
of those guys
Chicago
get knocked out would
Blackhawks.
be the Blackhawks in ahead of the Oilers. So again, we're talking really early. Obviously, Utah we've talked about.
You know what? Utah could shock the world, man.
Mm,
That if I was looking at the standings today and I was sitting there going, you know, a non-playoff team making it in and staying in, um, I'm gonna go Utah as like the one sort of new team, quote unquote, into the playoffs. I think Ottawa love them, but I think they're gonna get leapfrogged here pretty quick by the Leafs. Um, And looking in the East, there's no one really new. Well, Detroit, I guess, would be a new team, so to speak. But yeah, I think Utah's gonna be that one. I think they're gonna be, if anyone's gonna do it, that's like a surprise team. Holy crap, didn't see it coming. I think Utah.
My thinking, I'm going to stick with it, is that I think Anaheim, that their young forward group is pushing up. I think the Leo Carlson, Troy Terry, Mason McTavish, Beckett Seneca, if he keeps it going, and I think their young D are just going to get better throughout the season. Obviously, Jackson Lacombe signed the big deal, but Olin Zellweger, Pavel Nidyukov, some of those guys, I think if Doso can really establish himself as a top 15 goaltender in the league, I think Joel Quenneville will get the Ducks rolling enough that they're going to be the surprise. And the reason I think that is I think that the Los Angeles Kings are going to fall off this year, and I think the Ducks are going to take over as the top team in California. What about you, Maddie? If we got Utah, Anaheim, maybe making the playoffs, is there any other? Do you have a surprise, a sleeper that you think maybe wasn't in the playoffs last year that could jump in, or do you agree with those two?
I Seattle's gonna get there this year. They could be a sleeper too.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, like I could see Anaheim overtaking Los Angeles.
Right. Yeah, Seattle's like Dan said, that's when you really start looking at that roster. And
A
Lane
lot of guys,
Lambert's got them going. So yeah, it's
a lot of
interesting.
guys that know how to win there.
Yeah, they've got enough cup rings in the room to keep the mojo going.
Hmm.
What about I mean, it's probably too early to call the first big trade of the season. There's not a lot of rumors out there, but maybe the Calder Trophy. That's going to be one of the interesting races this year. The NHL's Rookie of the Year, obviously Ivan Demidov in Montreal, Matthew Schaefer now with his awesome start for the Islanders, and then it's the year of the D. I mean, Sandy Pelika's playing well in Detroit. You got Zeev Buium we talked about. I know Calgary's struggling out of the gate, so maybe not Zane Parekh, but he could all of a sudden have an explosion and put up Hudson type points. I don't know who you guys like this rookie class and who's sort of standing out. And don't forget, Dan mentioned Emmett Finney, who is playing first line in Detroit and keeps pumping in points as a seventh round pick too. So not the
I
biggest
think
name,
you
but
I think you look like I know Byam's got points, like he's got 8 points and he's a -8 too, right?
Mhm.
Um, I think you look at the body of work Schaefer's put together on the island, and he's 7 points, he's a +3.
Right.
And I just think if Schaefer continues to be a plus player and keep, almost a point a game pace, regardless of kind of what Finney or Demidov do, like that's to me as a rookie defenseman in the NHL, like
And he's a
that's
young 18-year-old defenseman. I think he was the
right.
youngest defenseman in NHL history to record a point, score a goal. Like he's setting
And
records in this rookie
and
league.
and, and so I just look like, oh, really going on a limb, Dan, picking Schaefer, but
For
like
so.
you just have to think of like the position they play too, right?
Mhm.
Like it's it's one thing as a D-man to be almost a point a game. It's another thing to be doing that and being a plus.
Right.
Because then you're not just like a power play merchant either, right? Like you're getting legit 5-on-5 points too while you're doing that, and you're shutting down like Schaefer's shutting down the other team.
He's
He's a
playing
plus one,
26 minutes a night. He's playing in, yeah, all
right?
situations. He's killing penalties too. I mean, it's
So
probably right now the betting odds. I don't know. Demidov was a pretty heavy favorite, but I'm assuming if you look him up, probably Matthew Schaefer's got to be neck and neck, if not ahead right now. Is that what you think too, Maddie? That Schaefer's really impressed you?
Yeah, he, as an 18-year-old, he's wow. He's +3 right now. Has 7 points. Like he's yeah, like this Newark, the Islanders have just found themselves a Kill McCarr version of stud D-man.
Yeah, Winnipeg coach Scott Arniel, like obviously they don't see a lot of the Eastern Conference, but when they went through the Islanders, he made that comment. What Maddie just said is that this kid skates like Cale Makar, and he's got that level of a dynamic ability. So if that's the case, he is a real franchise changing player for the Islanders, and if he has that kind of impact, if the Islanders are even close to that wild card race, or obviously we talked a lot about New Jersey, Pittsburgh, Washington, Carolina. If Patrick Waugh and Matthew Schaefer can get the Islanders into that playoff conversation in the East, I think that definitely helps increase him. Obviously, if the Canadians win the Atlantic Division, which they're on top of now, and Demidov's a 60, 70, 80 point guy, then that maybe swings it back in favor of Demidov just based on team results. But I do think right now, if I had to vote today, I do think I'd go Schaefer just because, like I said, he's playing 26 minutes a night and having such a big role. Now, here's one more for you guys. Always a fun one or maybe a tough one, especially for Dan being a coach himself. But who will be the first coach to get fired this season? There's a prediction. Is there a team that's catching your eye that looks like they might have a coach on the hot seat? I can go first if you want, and then you can weigh in too. So, because I got a couple in
um
mind.
I don't know if Tampa doesn't turn it around, does Coop go? And
Right.
you say that not lightly, but sometimes the message is done. It's worn itself out. As good of a coach as you can be, like Barry Trotz lasted how long in Nashville, and eventually the message just was thin. Coop right now, I don't think he's on the hot. I don't think he's on the hot seat. It's maybe like lukewarm. Um, but like Sullivan just got to New York, so they're not going to be too hard on him.
Yeah.
They just obviously re-upped Huska and Calgary and
Mhm.
places like that. So I just don't see a lot of teams underperforming to the point that coaches are like really like going to get fired over. Um, outside of right now, like Tampa,
Yeah, Tampa.
which
I mean, again, I think
you know,
that would almost be one if they don't make like you almost got to give him as much rope as
well,
possible. And I mean,
he's
he's
a
a legend there. And
he
if
he's
they
probably
miss
not been
the
fired in
playoffs,
season, but I just like
yeah, miss the
I
playoffs, mutual parting. Yeah,
yeah, I just don't like Sullivan just got to the Rangers. Like Islanders are where they're supposed to be. Bruins want to lose.
hmm,
Sabres are the Sabres, and Lindy Ruff's there. Like
right,
maybe Lindy Ruff, but like what are you gonna change in Buffalo?
right. So, so,
Like
so the one coach that's out there that I think everyone's surprised didn't get a job this year or didn't bounce back, and obviously there was a fallout in the playoffs, and you can't really call out your franchise goaltender either. But Pete DeBoer is kind of the guy that the first team that makes the move if they still have playoff aspirations this year. I think DeBoer is kind of the obvious hire, and for me, the team that I'm really looking at right now, guys, is the Minnesota Wild because Billy Guerin. Thinks this team's trending up. Obviously, you signed Kaprizov to this huge new deal. John Hines, I think, is only in his second, maybe third season there. He hasn't been there that long either. But I feel like a team that could really like blow it up or shock the system and try and again, I think they got some good chemistry with Kaprizov and Boldy and stuff. But I think John Hines, even though him and Bill Guerin have the U.S. Team USA connection as well, I think he might be the guy. If Minnesota keeps, I keep thinking they're one of the top teams in that division in the Central, and if Utah stays at the top and they're losing ground on the Colorado, Dallas, Winnipegs. I think John Hines for Pete DeBoer in Minnesota could be one. And if Pete DeBoer was going to go somewhere else, I look at Kenny Holland in LA.
I actually,
Obviously, he didn't hire Jim Hiller, and I don't know what their relationship's like. But I think if LA really wants to, we gotta because they signed, Joel Edmondson and Cody Ceci and these veterans. Like they built a veteran, brought Corey Perry in. They built a veteran team for Anze Kopitar's last kick at the can to make the playoffs. And if they're not going strong, I think Pete DeBoer to LA, that could be a potential replacement for Jim Hiller. Those LA, Minnesota were the two that I had in mind, but I don't know, Maddie or Dan, do you have any input on
I
those two or
mean,
anybody else that could pop?
now that you bring it up, like as an Oiler fan, I wouldn't hate Pete DeBoer going to one of those two teams.
Right.
A couple reasons: he can't beat us in the playoffs. And two, he's like notoriously hard on goaltenders. So like he's gonna go in and ruin Gustafson and Wallstedt in Minnesota. Like I wouldn't be bringing Pete DeBoer near any of my goaltenders.
Right.
If I had young, fragile goaltenders, the way he threw like Ottinger under the bus, are you kidding me?
Right. Yeah.
He's the guy's a hell of a hockey coach. Don't get me wrong; he wins a lot of games, but and then LA maybe, but like again, the NHL recycles, right? But like
Mhm.
you bring in Pete DeBoer into LA for what? Like you've got 1 to 2 years left of maybe making the playoffs. Does Pete DeBoer want that job outside of being able to live in LA?
Right. Yeah, that's true too. Yeah. Maddie, how about you? You get to close out the show, buddy. You got any blockbuster trade ideas, or what's your hottest take for the rest of the season and playoffs? You got anything that you haven't got to touch on yet that you think the listeners would like to hear on your insights?
Yeah. I'm with you, Larry. Like the Wild needs someone who can push their stars to the next level. If they can't get that at the Heights, then gonna go with somebody else. Like, but like, yeah, I could see maybe Anderson going somewhere, Kadri leaving Calgary, just to get some of that draft capital back.
Yeah, I think Dallas is one of the teams in the West with obviously I know Jamie Benn's eventually going to be back. He's been sidelined, but Tyler Seguin, Matt Duchene, like they have a real veteran group there. I think
Brandon,
I think Jim Neal's probably one of the best perennial GMs in the league. I think he's not really going to leave any stone unturned, and I think they could be the team that's really prying on Calgary for Anderson and Kadri, maybe both of them sooner than later. And they do still have some potential future assets and a 2027 first round pick and guys like Maverick Bork and some of these guys. I don't know, Dan. What
You
do you
know,
what do you think for potential
one thing I
trade?
just thought of too?
yeah,
Nashville.
Right?
Brunette, like
Yeah.
there's a guy that man, if they don't
Two slow starts in a row. And if Trotz does believe in the roster he made and he's kind of in his first foray as GM and doesn't want that to be his reputation with Stamkos and Marsh. So maybe yeah, that's a good call too. And
I
I'm
just
sure
was sitting
Trotz and
there
DeBoer probably have a history, but then you got UC Saros in the line of fire for
yeah,
DeBoer. But
yeah, like yeah, I don't know. Man,
Jake my favorite.
I think you see Trotz go to Nashville before LA just because there's a little bit more of a
Mm,
runway there for or not Trotz, DeBoer.
DeBoer, yeah.
Because I just think there's a little bit more of a runway there to potentially win with that team for longer. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I'm DeBoer, I'd be going there over if I had my pick.
Hmm.
But yeah,
And yeah, I think we'll definitely see at least one coaching change and probably one, decent sized trade between now and American Thanksgiving. As, obviously some of these teams are gonna, if they're not happy at 500 and they think they're better than that, some of these teams are gonna make a move one way or the other, shake up the roster or make a coaching change. But it's going to be an interesting month of November. Obviously, October is always fun out of the gate. But thanks again for joining me, guys. And before we go, I always like to ask you guys if there's anything you want to plug or promote in your world. Dan, obviously, the Bayern game tomorrow is big, but what else have you been up to lately, and what do you have on the horizon?
I'm just same old, same old. I'm just took a job this year with the general manager of the Wolves Hockey Club in the JPHL. So transitioned from being on the bench every day to hockey ops and I've hired a couple good coaches to take care of our one team this year. I'll be back on the bench next year. So just doing that, looking for some young hockey players that, want to develop and get to the next level. It's been fun roster building. It's always been a passion of mine, just sort of scouting and roster building and doing stuff. So enjoying kind of that life. And we're excited, we're building. And if the folks that follow youth hockey kind of look at the JPHL, look at the model that's being built, it's exciting. And there's a lot of really good hockey guys. And so if you go look at some of the coaches in our league, there's some big names that are working in our league, like Sean Bell's got HC Edmonton. He's the GM there, and he's got himself there, and Kelly Buchberger's over there coaching, and Chris Josephs took my old job at the Titans, and so this is an up and coming league, and we're partnered with the BCHL, and we're doing a lot of really good things for a lot of really awesome kids. So
Yeah, that's exciting, especially with the Wolves being an expansion program and getting to kind of wear all the hats. Like I said, you've done the coaching, you've done the management side, and I know you're also even the commissioner of the Ultimate Fantasy Hockey League this year. So
yeah,
you're doing a little bit of everything. You get to be
doing a
Gary
little bit of
Bettman.
everything because why not just burn the candle at both ends and sleep 2 hours a night and work 22 hours a day.
Absolutely. And Maddie, what about you? What are you looking forward to besides beating me in our first ever fantasy matchup next week? The new rivalry.
Yeah, looking forward to Larry's birthday and Brad Paisley next weekend, and then January 25th.
Offspring. That's when you
Right.
get to fire it up, hey?
Yep.
Right on. That'll be fun. And obviously, I mean, now that the Jays are bringing it back Friday night here, we were at Canadian Brewhouse and we were good luck for the opener in Toronto. We might have to get back there and see if the Jays can pull it off, especially if they win tomorrow night and they're coming home with a chance to close it out on Friday. The Jays bandwagon will be fun for the rest of as long as they go.
Yeah. I think that was a lot of innings for the Dodger pitchers. They've used 10 pitchers in the bullpen.
You
They're
got to
gonna
get to their bullpen. You got
they're
to get to their
just
bullpen.
you gotta get to the bullpen. They're gonna get super tired. They're gonna get gas. You gotta get this like they did today. You gotta get Otani out early. You gotta get Snell out early. You gotta get to the bullpen.
Yeah, we'll probably get to see Trey Savage one more time in this series now too, which will be fun, especially such a young,
Tomorrow.
exciting guy. Tomorrow he's throwing.
Tomorrow. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Right on. Yeah.
Who's pitching tomorrow?
Yeah, with against Snell again.
Oh, okay. The game one starters again. Okay, right
Yeah.
on. Yeah, that should be good. Yeah. And yeah, I guess we'll catch the end of the Oiler game now, guys. They're in the third period, up 5-3 at the second intermission. So thanks again for you guys joining me, and obviously thanks as always to everyone who tuned in tonight or tomorrow when the podcast drops. Enjoy the ongoing NHL season, and we'll see you again soon for another episode of the Fishbowl Hockey Podcast.